G'day, everybody. I'll tell you what, it's been a couple of weeks. I've been away. I've
Man, I
moved
missed
house.
you. I missed you, Jonah.
It's nice to be missed. It's nice to be missed. And look at everybody in the room already chatting away. Good to see. And moved house and bouncing back from a cold too. Had to move with the cold. My goodness. This week, Ross and Jono with you live. This week we are talking about a fascinating discovery made at En Gedi, swords, ancient swords within a cave.
Look at that.
Even
Look
the
at
swords.
that. Would you look at that?
Hey,
That's some good pictures of us, isn't it? That it helps to have Seth doing a little tweak. I think he made us look better than we really do. But
I tell people that I look like that all the time. No.
Okay.
And now listen, it's not as if this picture here that Seth has made is far-fetched. You and I, only a few years ago, filmed live. In fact, it was my very first Facebook Live, Ross, from the Cave of the Column in Qumran.
I remember that. We went in that cave, and that was a fun time.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. So we were on site, but this is a different cave, not very far from that cave, Ross.
That's right.
But this is a different cave. We're going to be talking about that. But before we do,
okay,
it is. I just want to touch on one thing because the time is upon us, or it's about to be upon us in a couple of days, and that is, of course, the first day of the seventh month. Is that a politically correct way of saying it? No one will be upset if I say the first day of the seventh month.
No, go ahead. Tell us what you're thinking, Jonah. What are you thinking?
If I call it Yom Teruah, then some people are going to say, no, it's just Rosh Hashanah. And if I say Rosh Hashanah, then other people are going, it's not Rosh Hashanah, it's Yom Teruah. It's the first day of the seventh month. The reason why that is significant, whether you regard it as the first day of the beginning of the Jewish New Year, right, on the first day of the seventh month, or if you regard it as Yom Teruah, as the Torah puts it in various places. One of the things that I always like to highlight is Nehemiah chapter 8, Ross.
And why would you go there? Wait, let me say, while you're going there, because I know you're going to read something. While you're going there, we are going to get to this cave, but I want to say this coming Saturday at 10:30 a.m., I'm going to be teaching on this very subject, on the subject of the first day of the seventh month. Is it Rosh Hashanah? Is it?
You're going to do all this? You're going to get into
is it the Festival of Trumpets? I mean, what is it about this
What
day?
is that? What is the festival? What is Yom Teruah?
And I think what you're going to do, is ask the question, do the biblical writers know what to do on the first day of the seventh?
Do they know? I'm just going to read one thing. And this is something that I read and pointed out in my discussion when I was in my presentation when I was at the conference. I think it was the 79th annual conference of UI, which people can watch online, and many people have on the UI YouTube channel. But I'm going to mention it again here today because it is the time. And it says in Nehemiah chapter 8, it says, when the seventh month arrived, first day of the seventh month, the Israelites being settled in their towns, the entire people assembled as one man in the square before the water gate. And they asked Ezra, the scribe, to bring the scroll, it says here, the scroll of the teaching of Moses, which the Lord had charged Israel. What is that in Hebrew?
HaTorah. Yeah, it's it's HaTorah Moshe.
On the first day of the seventh month, Ezra the priest brought the teaching before the congregation, men and women, and all who could listen with understanding. He read it. Now, this is it. He read it facing the square before the water gate from the first light until midday. From the first light, so basically from dawn until midday. And we're talking about a maximum of 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours window of opportunity to read this before the people. So the men and the women,
could they have been reading very fast? Maybe. Go ahead. Go ahead.
They could have been reading very fast, but it also says that they read it to those who could understand. The ears of the people were given to the scroll of the teaching. Ezra stood and he was on a wooden tower made for that purpose, it says, And then in verse 8, Ross, it says that it goes on to say, the Levites are there, and they read from the scroll of the teaching of God, translating it and giving the sense. So they were explaining it so that they understood the reading. They were explaining it to the people as they went. So they might have been reading it very fast, but if they were reading it very fast, they were also pausing and saying, hey, now listen, let me just explain. When it says X, what that means is da-da-da-da. And they had, as I said, a time frame, 5 to 6 hours perhaps, to read Roll of the Torah of Moses. Now, the reason why that's an interesting thing is because it takes about, I think you and I estimated, most reports say about 28 hours to read the entire Torah.
The Pentateuch. Yeah, the Pentateuch.
From the beginning of Genesis to the end of Deuteronomy. It takes about 28 hours, roundabouts, reading continually in the Hebrew. What they were reading here, what is described as the scroll of the Torah of Moses, is less than 6 hours. So the question becomes, what did they read? Some people might say, well, maybe they had all 5 books and they were intending to read from all those 5 books, but Ezra only read from part of it. Maybe.
Yeah.
And I remember discussing this with a rabbi friend of mine, and he said, well, if he only read part of it, it would have been the 10 Commandments, the blessings and the curses. That makes sense. But something maybe like the Moses scroll, perhaps, Ross.
Now that's an idea. Hey, Jono, I don't know what you're doing Saturday, my Saturday. But if you happen to be awake in the middle of the night, log in and we can talk about that, because that's going to be exciting. We're talking about that now. I was just going to say one other thing.
Food for thought for people to chew on. You were going to say one other thing. Go ahead.
No, go.
So something to think about as we come into Rosh Hashanah, Yom Teruah, certainly the first day of the 7th month. And now, were they reading from the scroll of the Torah of Moses? Were they reading from what we regard today as the Moses scroll? I don't know if we can say that. They might have had the Josiah Revised Version, which is a little bit longer, includes chapters 12 to 26.
Here's another question. Is there any mention in Nehemiah chapter 8 of them blowing trumpets?
No.
Blowing a shofar? You would think, okay, so we're going to have to get into this Saturday.
Is there any mention in Nehemiah chapter 8 of the first day of the Jewish New Year? Nothing there. So Nehemiah, the book of Nehemiah and Ezra don't seem to know anything of Yom Teruah. By the way, they don't seem to know anything of Yom Kippur either, which is only
You're going to take all of the good stuff for Saturday.
Right, so
let me tell you, I'm excited to get into
a
story about a cave. I want to talk about
a cave. Now listen, I'm really interested in this because you and I got together on your Zoom call. Now, before we talk about anything, I just wanted to remind everyone what that Zoom call is, because there were a number of things that were discussed on that Zoom call a couple of weeks ago, which were fascinating. And we're not even allowed to talk about one of those. We're going to leave, the topic. We're going to leave that. That's for who is that? Who gets to join these Zoom calls?
On Wednesdays, I do a very detailed. We cover a lot of ground, but it's with the members of the Patreon. So anybody who is either a member of this YouTube channel, if you're watching this, you're watching it on Ross K. Nichols TV. If you become a member, you're in the group. And on Wednesday, we do this. Everything we do is at no charge. But this is a way for me to say thank you for those who are helping me to continue to put out more video content. So, but yeah, we talked about quite a bit of this, and we got into a little bit about this cave, and I'm holding a report. I can't share the report on the screen, but we're going to get into some of that.
Hold on, because so some really cool things that we discussed on that Zoom call. One of the things that we discussed, of course, was the cave. We're allowed to talk about the cave. I want to talk about that. Of course, the Moses scroll was discovered in a cave in the Wadi Mujib, that is on the Jordanian side of the Dead Sea. Now, directly across the Dead Sea, on the Israeli side, is a place called En Gedi. Now, we go to En Gedi almost every tour. We go to En Gedi. We may go to En Gedi this tour, this coming November. We'll see how we go. We've got a very ambitious itinerary, and we'll see weather permitting. But we'll certainly go past it. And En Gedi has high biblical significance in that a lot of Davidic narrative that includes Saul appears there in En Gedi. David hides in a cave, and so on and so forth. It's a beautiful, beautiful nature reserve, and it has a natural spring. In any case, there are caves there, right? And it appeared into the news that just a few weeks ago that there was a discovery made in a cave that included four, what was it, 3 swords and a javelin head, I believe, Roman in origin,
right,
that purport to be perhaps 1900 years old roundabouts. And this was all very exciting. And when I joined this Zoom call with you a couple of weeks ago, I was quite keen to hear about this. But as it turns out, Ross, and we'll talk about this particular discovery that they made, these swords that included fragments of leather too, by the way, to do with the swords. But this was, as I was talking with you a couple of weeks ago, this was not, at least in our eyes, the most exciting part of the discovery.
That's right.
The swords were the only part of the discovery that made it into most of the reports on the news. I was looking at Biblical Archaeology magazine, I think, and they had a big thing about this. Very good. But what it entirely fails to mention is something that really piqued my interest. Go ahead.
Or to your point, either they don't talk about it at all, or they just blow past it. Now, the first thing I want to do before I share with the audience what I saw on the morning of September the 6th, I want to pull up, this is a page out of the archaeology report. You can see it's called New Studies in the Archaeology of the Judean Desert. Mm-hmm. Now, the only reason I'm pulling this up is to set the stage for what we're going to talk about. Jono, this is from the Israel Antiquities Authority, and it says, since the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 and up to the present day, the caves of the Judean desert have been a primary target for antiquities looting. Now, this, Jono, is due to, you ready? The unique climatic conditions in the region, which allows the preservation of outstanding finds, the most extraordinary of them being scroll fragments. Now, the reason I want to kick off with that, Jono, is because that's what you write in an Israel Antiquities Authority paper in the year 2023. But back in the 1800s, you know what they would have said? Nothing can survive in that harsh climate. Now, we get an official document from the IAA, and it says, look, let me tell you about these caves. The interesting thing about this is that they have this unique ability to preserve antiquities. And that is the case. So here's what I woke up to on the morning of September the 6th. I'm going to share my screen, Jono, and I'm going to show you the article that first came up. Rare cache of Roman weapons discovered in Judean desert cave. This is I-24 News. Yep. Now, look at these happy hunters here. Jonah, this is why it's so fun to go in caves. We're not encouraging people to do that. I mean, with the proper approvals, but we're going to talk about this tonight. Look what he's holding here. This is one of, and it's dirty, but look at the preservation of this thing. You can see the handle and even part of the sheath is there. Now, I'm going to quickly just scroll through and show. Look at this photo here, Jono. Man, isn't that beautiful, looking out over the Dead Sea?
We know that view.
This is inside of a cave. We're going to show you the cave. Look at this. This is from the outside, same cave. But notice it has two tiers, Jono. See an upper and a lower?
Mm-hmm.
This is a pretty big cave. It's not as big as what is called the Cave of the Column we were talking about. This is what is known as a Roman pilum. It is about a 3-foot iron head of a spear.
Yeah, that's the javelin.
Yep, that's the javelin. That's right. Now, I read through this article in bed. I hadn't even gotten up. And one of the things that hit me, I just want to show you the one piece that caught my attention. I was excited about the whole thing, but this section here, the cache was discovered by accident during a visit to the cave for a different purpose. In the same cave, Jono, 50 years ago, an ink inscription written in ancient Hebrew script was found on a stalactite dating back to the first temple period. Okay?
So can I interrupt you and ask you a question? Because when you first told me this absolutely blew my mind, and I just want to highlight it now. What I'm to understand from that is that a discovery was made, a discovery being that there was an inscription within a cave. They made this discovery 50 years ago, and they're now only just returning to document. How does that happen?
That is exactly what I want to share with everybody. And the only reason I know the details of that question, Jono, is not because of the newspaper articles, not because of the press conference. Well, I didn't go to the press conference. I had someone that was in there that I know that was sending us information, but it's because of this IAA report. Mm-hmm. And I'm sharing it with our viewers tonight. We'll go through the details of that. But let me just give credit. So when I got up in the morning, I woke up really early, and this was in my news feed. I read the article. I posted it on my Facebook page. 8 hours in the future, like at that time, Yoel Halevi in Israel.
Hey, Yoel.
He sent me a Facebook message or maybe commented on my post. And what he was saying is, I have a friend of mine who's working on this right now. And I said, I'm happy they found Roman swords, but honestly, what's the deal with the inscription? What do we know about it? Yeah. And he said, look, I'm looking into that right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Yoel, our friend in Kiryat Ata. And everyone will know Yoel from Hebrew in Israel. HebrewInIsrael.com?
That's right.
Okay.
That's
and
it. No, .net.
.net. Did he get the further details for you?
I'm sure he got some details because he's very connected through the university there at Haifa, I believe.
He is, but you did come in some further details, right?
I did. I got this from someone else in Israel. So I got two things. One, I have a friend of mine who was at the press conference in Israel. And then another university professor friend of mine forwarded me the document here, the document from the Israel Antiquities Authority. So the first thing, let me show, because you'll know this area right away, Jono. I'm going to show the cave location. Now, this is, if just to orient you, these are my notes. This is a page out of the.
Right, it's on that side,
right? Okay, so you're looking south.
We can show people this from the road.
We can. So the road that we're looking at, as you know, is Highway 90, and see the green patch up in the top half. That's En Gedi. So basically, we are about 1.5 kilometers to the north, looking south here, and from the road, the cave, what is now being called the Cave of the Swords, is about 150 meters from the road. Now, just looking at that, I know that area quite well, as you do. It's pretty steep. So it's not like you can stop the bus and run up the steepness, but you can approach the cave, according to the IAA report, from the north. So there's a way that we could get there. But anyway, I wanted to share this picture just because you can see the cave. See the red
Yeah.
circle in the dark spot towards the right of the photo.
All right. We
Okay.
should be able to pinpoint that, and we're certainly going to be looking for it because we will be going down that road on the tour and the Tanakh tour to viewers. So if you haven't already put your list down, got to do it in the next few days because we are locking things down, and we will be there from the 12th of Israel until the 19th of Israel. We're kicking off actually in Egypt, Ross, on the 31st of October, going through Egypt and for the first time, and then into Jordan. But on the 12th of November, we're crossing over its second leg of the Tanakh tour into Israel. So you can do the Israel tour, you can do the Egypt-Jordan tour, you can do both. And if you do both, you will incur a $100 combination discount. There's still time, but we're literally talking days now.
And by the way, I will post that link in just a couple of minutes. What I'm trying to do, I've just now really gotten halfway decent at pulling the photos and the screen. So, and by the way, we'll watch closer on the comments later as well. Let us go through this, and then we'll catch some of your questions toward the end, our dear friends who are watching. Now, so why the question is, this is not a new cave discovery. So here's what the report tells me, and some of the newspaper reports will say that in 1973, Jono, this is 50 years ago.
1 year old. Okay, yeah.
You were one, and 1973, man, that's a long time ago. So here's what happens. A man by the name of Ofra Aharoni, who is the En Gedi Field School instructor, he is the one who discovered a Paleo-Hebrew inscription on the stalactite inside this cave. Now, at the time, this is just good information for people who might be in a trivia game one night and they get asked this question. What was the cave called before it was called the Cave of the Swords? It was called the Cave of the Hermit, Jono. Why the Hermit? I don't know. But I'll find out and I'll let you know if I do.
There you go.
What's that?
What's that? Had no neighbors.
That's it. Well, if you live there, you probably would be a hermit. Only a hermit would live there. Maybe that's the idea. Now, let me see if I can show you a picture of the column. We don't have a really good close-up that shows the letters, but this is why the people went back in. We'll talk about that. Let me see. This is an article that... this is the column. Now, you can almost make some of the letters out, but understand that this photograph here is from the paper. It's not meant to be something we can read an inscription from. But if you look really closely and you know what you're looking at, you could see a couple of the letters. But I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry if you can't see it. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Okay. So 1973, Aharoni finds this. He reports it. And in March of 74, a full-blown investigation or an excavation, an inspection takes place under the IAA by a person by the name of Pesach. We know the name Pesach from Passover, Pesach Bar Adon. He conducted an excavation, Jonah, but as is the case in days gone by, now the IAA is really strict on this, but you know, in the past, they didn't always publish their reports. So an official report was not done, but Bar Adon's work, they know what he saw at the time. He did document in his diaries. Maybe this was going to be later published and he just didn't do it. So what we know from that initial report is that you saw in the photo, Jono, where we had an upper and a lower cave, or an upper and a lower entrance. It actually is two pockets to this cave. It's in the upper part where the inscription was discovered. And when they did the excavation, the archaeology work in there, what they found in the upper part, not the lower, was Iron Age. evidence of Iron Age through potsherds, various pottery, things like that.
I read about the pottery. Was there any, just to, sorry to interrupt, but there were no
that's fine.
as far as we know?
Say that again, Jono?
The pottery as far as we know?
All I know is that they found pieces of pottery. I don't know any details, and I haven't seen any of the photographs.
Yeah.
But there is in the report, and in this report that I'm working from, it says basically that it was Iron Age pottery, and they're good at dating the pottery. So now I'm going to touch on this inscription from the archaeology report. And then we're going to go through a couple of other things. And Jono, if you have questions or jump in, but let me just tell you, I don't want to read all of this because this gives us the new and improved inscription. So I don't want to talk about that at this point. I just want to say that at the initial time, when Bar Adon surveyed it, it says the following in the report. This is sort of catching us up on the original. Lacking corroborating findings and based on paleographical considerations, Bar Adon, with the aid of Joseph Nave, dated the inscription to the end of the 8th, beginning of the 7th century BCE.
BCE. Right? Okay.
Yeah. The inscription was classified, Jono, as a blessing, a supplication, or a prayer to God. And it says Bar Adon. Oh, here's our answer about the hermit. Bar Adon speculated that the inscription was written by a refugee or a hermit, praising God while watching the primordial landscape seen from the opening of the upper level of the cave. All right. That's his guess. And look, you saw the view. We'll see it again in a moment. It's breathtaking.
Yeah.
It would cause you to extol God. And now, why does he think it's a blessing? You're going to find out shortly. We're going to get into this. So now there's a chronological gap. This was in 1973, 74. He writes up, basically the initial reports or whatever, and it just seems to have been forgotten. Come with me, Jono, to the year 2017. In 2017, there is what is called the Judean Desert Caves Archaeological Project, JDCAP. And this particular project was established in 2017 for the purpose of surveying all the caves very meticulously because of what I read at the beginning of the program. The caves, we know now because of the discovery of the scrolls that the climate is so perfect there that it preserves antiquities which could be looted. So they decided we better survey these caves because otherwise someone else is going to survey them and they may not be as honest and forthcoming, and then things hit the black market, okay? So the cave was, the Cave of the Hermit, was surveyed in 2022. Now remember, 2017, they kicked this off. This one is 5 years later. Now, guess what? They didn't find any swords. They simply went to do a survey, and let me see if they found anything at all there. Yep, here we go. In the lower level, this is in 2022 of February, they found Chalcolithic and Roman period pottery shells, glass fragments, and a flat iron leaf-shaped arrowhead. Similar arrowheads of this type were found elsewhere in the area. Okay, so they're associating some of the discovery with Bar Kokhba.
Sure.
Now, here we go. May of 2023, just a couple of months ago. Here's what happens. It says Asaf Gayer, Gayer. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's, if I saw it in Hebrew, I could do better. Asaf Gayer visited the cave with Boaz Langford, Shai Halevi, and Gilad Martyr to document the inscription on the pillar using multispectral imaging technologies. And what they're hoping, Jono, is that with better photography, they will be able to reveal previously unseen letters, because in 1974, 73, 74, they just didn't have the equipment.
The technology, sure.
Now, while they're screening the upper level of the cave, Geyer finds an iron pilum, Pilum, which is the javelin head. Now, he finds it in a crevice, and he even describes it, and I'm just paraphrasing, but basically he says, you don't go in a cave without, you see a crevice, you're like, hey, I wonder what's, I mean, I've been in caves and, I want to check around. You never know.
You can't help but look.
You can't help but look, and he happens to see it's clearly been hidden. It's not like it's on a shelf, but he has to look over in to find it. Now, this is where it gets a little bit sketchy, even in the report. I mean, if you could see my report, it's covered with notes, because I know that they had 2 trips to the cave in June of 2023. So it's hard to say whether they found the spearhead, the javelin head, and in the same trip they found the 4 swords, or if they found it in a sec. I don't know this for sure. Don't hold me to this. I'm still trying to track that down. But either way, it was in June. Now, the reason I bring up it could be 2 different trips is we have 2 different license permits for the archaeologists to go in, and it's just kind of hard to follow. But nonetheless, in June is when this is discovered, and they also found.
This is when they applied this particular technology to the reading of the inscription on the stalactite.
Yeah, but right now I'm gonna follow the Roman weapons and kind of cover that, and then we'll come back to the inscription.
Go ahead.
So what they know now is that there's the pilum, the spearhead, the javelin head, and it's in good shape. I mean, if you see pictures of this thing is really in top shape. And they found 4 swords. And they know these are so well preserved, they can even now put pieces together that they didn't know before. Like, how would the Roman soldier wear this on their side? And there were even pieces of leather, the strapping, that would strap it to, Maximus's hip.
For almost 2,000 years. And just to interrupt, I do wonder if this is going to make its way to the Israel Museum by the time we get there in November. I wonder. It would be fascinating to see. We'll find out anyway. But okay, so yeah, that's right. So not only that, Ross, but pieces of wood associated with pieces of timber associated with the sword.
That's right.
Strips of leather, still preserved. G'day, Christo. Still preserved, and which is amazing. Coming back to the original,
really is.
Continue.
Yeah. So we know because other discoveries, they're pretty tight on what years the swords date from. Okay, so the swords are pretty tight on the dating, 132 to 136. Now that doesn't mean, now it's Common Era, CE. That doesn't mean that's when the swords got in the cave, though it seems pretty logical that that's when they got in the cave. Was it some rebels? There people now are trying to interpret and they're trying to put together the details of how did 4 Roman swords from roughly the period, or pretty closely to the period of Bar Kokhba, how did they end up in the cave? Well, quite possibly the consensus is that these Romans got bonked on the head, and these Jewish rebels took their swords and stashed them in the cave.
Right.
Well, that's the guess. We don't really know, but I mean, short of finding a document that says, I
And
found these and put them in the cave. Yeah.
no, but why not? Because as we discussed earlier off air, what it reminded me of was when Saul was searching for David, and he came to was it Eli, that the town of Eli, and the priests there, and they held in the
Oh yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and David having been there earlier, and he said to David when David was there, he said, "Do you have any weapons here?" He said to the priest, and the priest said, "Well, we've got the sword of Goliath.
And it
We've got
belongs to who else would it go to, David?
yeah. So take that if you like."
Yep.
So it reminded me of that because here we have a cave with an inscription that is several centuries old by this stage. When they've come, and perhaps they've come to it because it has some sort of sacred meaning to them, and they decide to stash the swords there. Perhaps, maybe.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I tell you, let me pull up. Let's see. I want to bring up one more time this article here. Redeciphered. Here we go. Okay. So I don't want to get Times of Israel right now. Okay. So here we go to the original reading. This was what, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, let's see. I'm looking for the original, what he thought. Oh, here we go. In 1975, explained Gayer, on Wednesday, he explained this. Bar Adon deciphered the text as reading, "Blessed is God, Adonai. Blessed," and then we can't make it, and then "Blessed is God, Elohim."
Elohim.
All right. So this is what, when Bar Adon looked at this stalactite, this is what he said he saw, was that inscription that I just read.
Okay.
Blessed is God, and so forth. So they had this idea that if they could use this high-tech camera, that they would get even more from it. So now what I want to do is I'm going to show you.
Sorry,
Yep.
before you get out of there, that's another shot of the location. Is it that photo there?
Yeah, let me pull that back up. Here, can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got Jeff and Christo. You looking at this, you guys? Because I'm going to make you run up there.
Now,
And
see, it's not really. This is a little bit easier access than the cave I went in Jordan. Remember, that was a little bit of a. I know the Tylers went in that one as well.
yeah,
So
that's high up, isn't it?
you've hiked up there. Yeah, so you've hiked that too. Okay, so you and I can do this while the others wait on the bus.
All right.
Now, so what I want to do now is I'm going to show you a photo that was sent to me from inside the press conference. Okay, so now I've adapted this a
You
little
got
bit.
people on the inside, Ross, is what you're saying. You got people on the
Yeah,
inside
yeah, yeah. Well, this
feeding
is
you
cool.
information. Okay, what is it we're looking at here?
Okay, so what we're looking at, this is it's only blue because that's what, it was dark in the room and the screen, the projector or whatever. So the red circle and the white rectangle are mine. I added that because I think this is fascinating. So now this is a drawing based on, it is a transcription and a representation of what I guess came up with an initial read, maybe of new photographs. Now, remember when we said that Bar Adon, when he first found it, he saw the word bless, so he sees it as a blessing, as the hermit looked out the cave in wonder and awe at the beauty there. Could be. But the red circle doesn't begin with bless. The red circle begins with curse.
Right.
Okay, so that is the paleo for curse. It's an aleph, a resh, and a resh. Some of our students on the biblical team, our Hebrew team, or learning these new letter forms. Don't get confused, folks. Okay, so this begins this first line. Now, this is not what Bar Adon saw. The white down below it has bless. It's right to left. It's red. So you have a bait, a resh, and a kaf. Bless, bless, bless.
Yeah.
So there are 3 lines of text which indicate blessings. The top line begins curse, and then it says asher, which is who, or blessed is the one, or I'm sorry, cursed is the one who would erase this, is basically what it says. And then this is what we see on the screen is the best they could do. Now, there are other things that we can read. I don't want to necessarily get into all of those because it's very speculative. Right?
Oh, come on. You can't do that to us.
Well, I will tell you what one has proposed.
Yeah.
And again, I'm no expert, but if you look to the left of the, I don't think my cursor, you can't see my cursor, can you?
No.
Okay. So if you see the rectangle with bless, 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 and you look to the left-hand section of the blue square right across from the white rectangle,
yep.
I see a mem, a lamed, and a kaf. Now that is Melech. That usually is translated as king. That's right. So what I'm confused on, and I'm still trying to crack this based on what limited stuff I can find, is that one of the authors, one of the experts, sees the second bless here as this is a bait, a gimel, and a yud. So he's saying that this is blessed is in the valley. You know, a valley is gay, gimel, yod, in the valley. And then he's reading, I guess, this word that I just said means king as salt. So he's thinking it has something to do with the valley of salt.
All right. Well, okay, maybe. Yeah.
Now, but I mean, I don't know. It's very preliminary. So here's what I know. I got this from a person in the university system in Israel, and they basically said that this is, you might even say, rushed. In other words, the team goes back in the cave, and they're going there to take good photographs. They find the swords, and that's real exciting, and they've got to tell people about this. So they rush on, what do we think these photographs say? And so I haven't seen photographs. What you see is what I've seen, and there may be better reports out there. Now, I have the transcription before me right here, and they don't say what this author here says. Let me pull this up again so you can see what I'm talking about, where he says the salt. Okay, if I go down here, I think this is the article. This is the one that says it has to do with salt. Oh, here we go. So, yeah, he stated that he was able to clearly see the Hebrew letters Beit, Gimel, and Yud. I see that. Okay. Following the word blessed. I'm with him there. Along with a word dividing dot that is typical of the First Temple era. We know about words separating dots or interpuncts. And then it says Gayer's reading of the word is in the valley. I'm with him there. Writing valley in a variant spelling that appears several times in the Bible. After this breakthrough, using tedious manually programmed computer imaging, Gayer attempted to reconstruct other partial letters. What he believes he can safely hypothesize is that the following word, Hey, Mem, Lamed, Het, or in English, the salt. Okay, so now again, he might be working with much better photographs than we have, so I don't know. But he says the locale, the Valley of Salt, appears in several biblical texts, including 2 Samuel 8:13, Psalm 60, verse 2. And both of these instances are in relation to King David, who in the psalm gives thanks to God for his acts that led to victory in the Valley of Salt. So I find this fascinating. Maybe it is. And again, this is what I'm looking at. And I do follow the first part of that section where he says blessed, and then this would be in the valley. And maybe this is just what someone drew, but a better drawing would show Hey, Mem, Lamed, Chet. I don't know. That's not a Chet, that's a Kaf, but either way. Okay.
All right, so I have a question. So just clarification. This is not an inscription. This is applied with ink onto the column.
That's correct. And if I said inscription, I'm glad you
made
that
you didn't.
point.
I'm just highlighting.
Okay.
Is it too early to ask you, are there any other features, any grammatical features about this application of ink upon this of the column that we find particularly interesting?
It is early, although one of the things that I'm interested in, and this has to do with my conversation with Nehemiah. Seth posted the full interview on my Patreon, the full 3-hour interview on.
People haven't watched it already. You really need to watch it. It's very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to leave that on my Patreon because it's Nehemiah's video and he didn't release all of it, and I don't know what he's going to do. So, but I wanted our supporters to see that. But anyway, he gets into a discussion about the ink and what kind of ink and so forth. And so there are some initial reports about the kind of ink. But here's what I will say about the inscription. And then we're going to get into a certain letter here, Jono. We're going to have to take a little extra time.
All right.
Okay. In the report, it says roughly, here's what they think this says. Let me pull this up one more time. Cursed is he. By the way, a friend of mine on Facebook said that looks like it says 99 cents. And so they commented when I posted this on Facebook, 99 cents for 4 swords. Those were the good old days. I thought that was pretty good. Okay, so it says, according to this reading, cursed is he who will efface or erase this inscription.
Right.
Then we have a broken line. We see a yod and a hey. Then we see the word bless, and then a yod hey and a vav, according to this transcription I'm looking at. And then we see another bless is, and then it says BG or Beit Gimel Yod. This is what our friend who read this as in the valley. But again, it says king. It doesn't say salt. So anyway, that's what I have here. And then there's one more, bless Baruch or Barak, and then it's followed by Adonai, is the way I would read that. Okay.
Now you said we had him in here as well?
We have what?
Elohim?
Well, that's what someone said, but I don't see that here.
That's here. Okay.
But again, this is all I have. So maybe it does say Elohim, but I think that was from what was reported by Bar Adon. That's what he saw. Maybe this is getting us a little closer. Again, we're probably early. We're probably very preliminary. And as we get the photographs and people have really studied it and they published it, I'm sure we'll be in much better place. I did want to say that two people by the name of Yigal and Yotam Tepper in 2019 studied the inscription, and they put it in the Bar Kokhba revolt time.
Okay.
So what they suggest is that the inscription is not early, like Bar Adon said, 8th, 7th century BCE. They say it's more towards the Bar Kokhba rebellion, but they are archaizing. They are
writing in
zealots,
yeah,
and they're writing it. Yeah,
patriotic zealotry. Okay, yeah.
But I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So here's one thing it says, and this is in the IAA report. An updated reading of the inscription, aided by multispectral photographs, alongside a new paleographic study, will be published by our team in the future. So that kind of settles that piece. Now, you and I had a discussion about an olive, and
Yes.
I thought I had my mind working one way, but let me just show people. This is just a fun exercise. I don't really have a solution yet, but if you look in the red circle, the letter on the right, that is an olive, and in paleo. And then we have a resh and a resh. We're moving right to left. Aleph, resh, resh. That clearly says curse or cursed is. And then you notice, if you look closely, you see a word separating dot inside the red circle. And then I have an aleph, a paleo aleph. Notice both of these look very similar. It's an arrow pointed to the left with a vertical line through it. Notice the positioning, the vertical stance is not exact, but you're writing on a stalactite. I mean, come on, give the guy a break. And then you have aleph, sheen, resh, a word separating dot, and then you have a yod, a mem, and a chet.
And I believe I'm looking at those same word separating dots after the word blessed too in the white script.
You are. Yep. Good eye. So this was a very common practice was in antiquity, and people who follow the Moses scroll story know that we see the same thing in the Moses scroll. We see Paleo Hebrew. We see word separating dots. In fact, it was accused, the accusation, the detractors of the time just said, it's somebody trying to copy an ancient inscription.
By including this punctuation,
Now, we know quite a bit about paleo. I'm going to pull up a couple of charts. You can't really read these. I'm going to put some links later so you can Google these, but these are some old charts. Notice this is just, if you were able, I'm going to zoom in a minute. I can show you a little bit better. Look at this one. This is a very detailed paleographic chart from the 19th century, Jono. These are all of the letter forms that they knew at the time. Now, what I want to do is blow up. I cut this in advance. And if you look at, this is one letter. This is the aleph out of one of those charts. In fact, it's from Cook's chart, if I'm not mistaken. And notice the column on the left is the Moabite stone. And then you have the Siloam inscription, and you can work your way across. I'm really interested in these first two. So the Moabite stone we date to the 9th century BCE, and the Siloam inscription, if this is done in the days of Hezekiah, notice the aleph, instead of a perfect arrow pointing to the left, it looks more like a tuning fork.
Yes, I was about to say that, yeah.
That crosses over the somewhat vertical stroke.
Yes.
And so what you end up with is, instead of an arrow shape, you see the tuning fork, but the two fork pieces are almost parallel with one another. Now, by the way, this is a very interesting aleph, and the Siloam inscription is one of the few that looks like that. But look, you see Cyprus here, kind of, sort of like that, but not exact. Now, let me see if I can pull one thing up here. This is an article by a scholar by the name of Shlomo Gil.
Yep.
Notice the name of it, identifying the form of the formal Hebrew aleph prevalent during the times of Hezekiah. Now,
Okay, but hang on, we're looking at the aleph form still. Were you pulling something else up?
Sorry. Let me get
All right.
that off. Hold on.
Okay.
Now can you see it now?
Got it.
Okay. Now I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment, and I'm going to do that again so I can get to the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for stopping me, though. Okay, here we go. So, Nave, now remember, Nave is the same guy who worked with Bar Adon on this cave inscription, or this cave writing that we're talking about tonight, the Cave of the Swords. He describes the evolution of the early form of the Hebrew aleph to be as follows. In the 10th century BCE, the Hebrew aleph consisted of a downstroke and a V turned on its side, henceforth generally referred to in this article as the V form. 9th century, downstroke becomes somewhat slanted, and the V, now narrower, shifts slightly to the left. Now, this is a little more technical than I wanted to go, but just stick with me.
Mm-hmm.
In the 8th century, the Hebrew aleph has a long downstroke, and the formal and cursive forms begin to diverge. The latter preserves the V, but sometimes has a tail to the lower bar. In the formal aleph, the V becomes two parallel bars, the upper one which crosses the downstroke, while the lower one remains on the right. In the 7th century, the V gives way to two parallel bars which
Right.
do not meet. Okay. Now I know that was painful to go through all that detail when it's kind of hard to follow, but what we're really talking about is they're trying to date by looking at an aleph. Is the aleph, as we know from the 9th century, or does it look more like the Siloam inscription, which is later? This, by the way, is going to be a big clue when we go to dating this. So the reason they are presently pushing this inscription, Jono, back to the 8th century, they're saying that by the time you get to the 7th century and beyond, the aleph has changed. Other letters have changed too. And again, I'm not trying to pretend that I'm an expert. I'm only going by what I've read and studied so far. So we are at the place where we are. I'm going to spend some more time in Shlomo Gil's article, and I'm also looking forward to the better photographs so that we can determine a little bit more. Now, this is going to be going on for some time. I doubt that this inscription is going to get put back on a shelf for another 50 years, Jono, because now people are saying, well, let's see the photograph. You got multispectral photos now.
Yeah,
Let's see them.
I'd like to see them.
So I am excited about what we've got here. One more time, here's the cave. When we are there on the tour, we're going to, at a minimum, slow down and point at the Cave of the Swords. And I'm like you. I hope that these are in the Israel Museum or somewhere on display by the time we're there.
Yeah.
It would be very nice to see that.
Excellent.
So, kind of as a wrap up, it often is the case, Jono, that accidental discoveries are what really are quite amazing. And if you look at it, more often than not, I mean, these people knew about the cave, they knew about the inscription. They just happened to be going to get some better photographs. And one inquisitive IAA guy says, I'm not going to go in a cave and not look in the cracks, and oh,
Right.
look.
Oh, look,
So,
swords.
yeah, that's right.
But
Oh,
it's
look. Hey.
the paper, but frankly, it is the inscription that has me fascinated. So I'm glad that you were able to give us that detail and also show us some of the letter forms, because that really goes a ways to dating it, and it's fascinating to see. Also, again, to see the interpuncts. Is this what we call them? The dots between the words.
That's right.
And again, relative to the Moabite stone, the Siloam inscription, and of course the Moses scroll. And we love that. So thanks for bringing us the details, Ross. I reminded everybody that. Go ahead.
We're going to learn more in the coming, I would say, weeks and months. And while we're in Israel, one of the things that I'd like to do is quite possibly, and I haven't tried this yet, but I might try to get a hold of the scholars who are listed in this report. And by the way, this report gives all of their email addresses. So wouldn't it be nice if, let's say, we happen to be going to En Gedi, and maybe we have one of the scholars meet us there. And if they can't, we're not promising this can happen, but if they can't, we'll certainly, have the report with us and we'll talk about it. So I'm going to put that link up because, like you said, we are almost out of time. But there it is.
Yeah, there you go. This Saturday. Okay, so you're going to be talking about the first of the 7th month, what that means biblically. You're going to do a deep dive on that one. That's going to be fascinating. So that's coming up. You're also interrupting. Are you interrupting your series on Isaiah to do that one?
I am. Yeah, the Isaiah series will resume, God willing, the following week. And but I'm looking forward to this on the first day of the 7th month. I mean, I have to take this day. And we're going to go through. We're going to talk about all of those, all of those texts where we just have this huge amount of texts that tell us what you're supposed to do. Remember in the Bible where it says you get little slices of apple and you dip them in the honey? You remember in the Bible? You remember, Jono? You remember in the Bible where it says you don't remember that? Well, you need to log in Saturday because we're going to look for all of those things. And what else would we do on the first day of the 7th month?
Well, I tell you what I'd love to do is hear the scroll of the Torah of Moses being read. That is where we're at. And as we disappear, don't forget the Tanakh Tour, TanakhTours.com. TANAKH, TanakhTours.com is the website that you can go to, leave a deposit and secure your place. We literally are days away from closing that opportunity for you, dear people. So if you are thinking about coming, you got to be really, really quick because we are nailing everything down. We really, really are. And these are the kind of places that we're going to be going to, at least driving past and pointing out, and maybe we're going to get a photo opportunity there. Looking forward to that.
Couple more things, Jonah. Let me say, in the coming weeks, one of the things that you and I are going to do, let me pull this up on the screen. This is the Nephilim. Look at that. Look at that. Would you look at that? Have you seen this?
Look at this. No, I haven't seen this. This is great.
Look in the glasses. Look in the glasses. Look in the glasses. Angels on earth. We're going to be doing this. And I'd like to do this next week, Jono.
You want to do this next week? All right. I think we're going to do this next week. And unless there's some amazing discovery made, we're going to endeavor to talk about this because we were talking about this, a month ago, and some of the wild things that you might not be familiar with, dear viewers, on that particular topic. So we're going to be touching on that, and we will return this time next week. And until then,
wait, I have one more. I have to do one more quick commercial. I'm sorry. All right, look.
He's signing off.
Here we go. Wednesdays. Part of what we do for those who do sign up for the patron on our Patreon, we're doing this every Wednesday for about an hour. And all of those recordings, there's Zoom sessions where people can come together and practice. And all of those are in our Patreon. People who sign up at any level, Jonah, they're free for any level. If someone signs up, whether it's a dime a day or whatever. So I really hope that people will do that.
Give us the link again. Where's the link for signing up to the Patreon? You had it up just before. There it is. So you can get that QR code hop onto there and then join that lesson. It's well worth it, and the discussion that you guys have on the Zoom call afterwards as well. All right, now we're signing off. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again this time next week. Ross.
Have a beautiful day, everybody. And look, I'm going to put that up. Look at that nice picture there. All right. Hey, listen, Jono, don't make me wait this long again to talk to you on the air. And remember, next time we're together, Jono, look, you got to do this. Yeah. This is what we're doing.
Done. All right.
That's right. All right, guys. Sure. Hey, if I don't see you before, then blow that horn and eat you some apples and honey.